Good morning and welcome to the June Ordinary Council meeting. Item 1, acknowledgement. We, Greater Shepparton City Council, acknowledge the Yorta Yorta peoples of the land which now comprises Greater Shepparton. We pay our respect to their tribal elders, we celebrate their continuing culture and we acknowledge the memory of their ancestors. Item 2, privacy notice. This meeting is being streamed live via our Facebook page and made available for public access on our website along with the official minutes of this meeting. All care is taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given in the event that your image is broadcast to the public. It's also assumed that your consent is given to the use and disclosure of any information that you share at the meeting, including personal or sensitive information, to any person who accesses those recordings or minutes. Item 3, governance principles. Council considers that the recommendations contained in this agenda gives effect to the overarching governance principles stated in section 9.2 of the Local Government Act 2020. These principles are as followed, and councillors, they're listed on page 6. Item 4, apologies. Do we have any apologies this morning?
Yes, Mr. Councillor Paul Wickham. Thank you, Shane.
Wickham, no worries. Can I have someone second that, please? Councillor Summer, thanks. All in favour? Carried. Item 5, declarations of conflict of interest. Do we have any conflicts this morning? No, very good. Item 6, confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Are any of the minutes opposed? No, can I please have a councillor move that? Spinks.
I'll move that the minutes of the 27 May 2025 council meeting as circulated be confirmed.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that, please?
I'll second that, Mayor Sally.
Councillor Eddie. Councillors, all in favour? Motion carried. Item 7, public question time, nil received. Item 8, deputations and petitions, nil received. Councillors, over the page to page 8, item 9.1, Safer City Camera Network Review. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Summer.
Thanks, Mayor Sally. I will move that in relation to the Safer City Camera Network, the Council 1, note the findings of the review of the Safer City Camera Network. 2, partner with law enforcement, justice and community groups to develop a community safety strategy which considers consultation, feedback and determines the overall safety priorities for the Greater Shepparton area. 3, update relevant Safer City Camera Network operational documents, including the Memorandum of Understanding by the end of 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion, Mayor Sally.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I earlier moved a notice of motion to revisit our Safer City Camera Network, and that was due to rising crime rates and perceptions of safety within Greater Shepparton and beyond. So I want to thank the council staff for putting together this very comprehensive report. Much of the activity that's taken place subsequent to the initial rollout of CCTV in 2012 was unknown to myself and fellow councillors, and I'm pleased that work was continuing behind the scenes. And I'd also like to thank the community for over 400 submissions to our safety survey. It's clear we have a lot more work to do in this space, particularly around Shepparton CBD, Vaughan Street and Maud Street bus interchange. Based on consultation with Victoria Police, rolling out a second stage of CCTV will only be considered after we've developed a community safety strategy or in conjunction with, and that will determine overall safety priorities. Local government is limited in what we can achieve around crime and perceptions of safety, but public infrastructure does have a part to play. I'm very interested in crime prevention through environmental design initiatives, which I hadn't heard of before. And other themes to emerge were increased police presence, continuing the CCTV, better public lighting and active, clean, well-managed spaces. So I hope that this can be the beginning of a stronger stance against crime and just general feelings of safety in our region. More than happy to support the motion and looking forward to starting work on the safety strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Firstly, I have a very vested interest in this particular item, and I'm so glad that it was brought about in February by Councillor Summer. So thank you for bringing this forward. Cameras, as highlighted, have been installed throughout Shepparton's late night precinct, including Maud Street, around the cinemas, the taxi ranks, Victoria Park Lake, Shepparton Sports City, Queen's Gardens, Vaughan Street and Maud Street bus interchange. The network incorporates CCTV or closed circuit television cameras connected to the central control room located at the Shepparton Police Station. Digital footage is transmitted live to a control room, which enables monitoring 24 hours a day. This is an excellent report. Obviously, additional cameras and antennas that are required means additional costs. But for the community, it is safety versus cost. And now that the CCTV network of individual businesses and particularly private residences highlight the importance of crime prevention. Time and again, criminals are being caught because of this particular mode of catching them through the closed-circuit television. Together with public CCTV, we need to really utilise and coordinate those recordings of the businesses and the privacy ones, instead of just being posted perhaps on social media and community groups. Far more specified details to enable a more cohesive and connected system. This will be a massive upgrade in future, but you know, it is basically, it's like neighbourhood watch on steroids, if you like, because this is what we need. Thank you.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Schubert.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Saleh. Look, I'm really pleased this project has got some additional legs, and I've got to say that the project is a partnership between Council and Victoria Police and aims to assist with the detection of and the Victorian Police response to antisocial behaviour and crime. And look, it's so good that Council is responding in this manner, because we had 427 residents respond to the survey, 75% female and 22% male, who responded to the consultative processes, and 72% of those respondents avoid certain areas because of safety concerns. We're hoping that's going to be rectified out of this process. So very pleased that Council stepped up and done this today. So good stuff.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 19, item 10.1, borrowing policy. There's a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Summer.
Thanks, Mayor Saleh. I'll move that the council adopt the borrowing policy as attached.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
I'll second that, Mayor Sullivan.
Ready? Would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure. This borrowing policy sets out a framework of how council manages our borrowings. It provides parameters around which council undertake borrowing, around which, just a minute. Yes, so we've reviewed our policy. It provides I can't speak today. It is as it is. I'll just let someone else speak to that. Thank you.
Very good, Councillor. Councillor Eddie, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just quickly, Mayor Saleh, this policy, obviously, we've made a few small changes. The policy previously made provision for the sustainable borrowings. I'm starting to get tongue-tied. It's contagious. Borrowings via the lending institutions that do not fund fossil fuels. I'm quite pleased that that's been removed. And yeah, I'm happy to support this policy.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Eddie. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Spinks.
So the borrowing policy itself is fairly straightforward. It is functionally guides and provides boundaries for how we borrow responsibly. Within that though, this is an example of decisions being made for a direction that I do not support and has happened quietly by the larger group. So as Councillor Eddie said, it is correct. What has been removed from this policy is the work around sustainable investments. And what that means is that in the last council term, we introduced an additional point to the policy where when it was financially sustainable to within 0.1% of an interest rate, we would prioritise lending institutions that did not fund fossil fuels. That has very strongly been removed from the policy. I propose a foreshadowed motion where I would like to reintroduce the The condition, the wording of that would be that council will preference financial institutions that do not finance the fossil fuel industry where the rate of interest is less than or equal to other rates available to council at the time of borrowing. My intention in doing this is that I have vocally opposed these changes in every briefing, at every opportunity that this has come up. It continues to be talked about as though it's a unanimous decision. It absolutely is not, to remove that portion of the policy. And along the way, there was arguments to be made, I heard, from two perspectives. One is straight up that there's people who don't believe fossil fuels and emissions are a problem. There's not much I can argue against about that. That comes down to the individuals and the things we believe or don't believe. But the other part of the argument was that we have a financial responsibility to our community to make sure that we are not that financial priority should be top priority in all instances. So the part of the previous condition was that the prioritisation would occur if it was within 0.1%. I am proposing that we remove that and that the condition makes it that only when we have two or more options that are in all aspects the same, except for the opportunity to prioritise the one that does not support fossil fuel industries, then we would still make that decision. I am meeting in the middle. I am attempting to compromise to find a way for me to be comfortable with this policy. And I am asking the councillors to not support the motion that is on the table, but to allow me to move my foreshadowed motion so that we can then implement that condition within the policy. This is the compromise that prioritises financial investment and then as a second option prioritises the environmental aspect of the condition. And I hope that is enough. I hope that provides the opportunity to meet in the middle where I can support this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Just reading through the policy, one thing that comes to mind for me is that, a councillor's role whilst representing the community who have voted them in is to really serve their best interest and to really ensure that the financial viability is at the forefront of all of that. The borrowing policy provides the framework at which council will undertake the borrowings responsibly, soundly, with proven financial management principles at the front.
Councillor Brophy. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? No? Councillor Summer, right, a reply?
Yes, thanks. Just in regards to the idea that things need to be unanimous, I think what we need to think about is respecting the majority. The point of coming to these meetings is so we can speak individually, but in the end, it has to be a vote because it's very rare that there's ever a unanimous decision. Now, what's been suggested as a foreshadowed motion has merit. I mean, there's no material difference to the budget, then it's unlikely to ever be used. And if it makes one councillor feel a bit better about it, sure. But again, I would be respecting the majority of what the councillors want to do. So we'll just see what happens with the vote.
Okay, thank you, councillor Summer. Councillors, all those in favour? Against? Okay, motion carried.
Division?
Thank you. Councillors, all those in favour? Councillor Schubert, Councillor Eddy, Councillor Brophy, Councillor Sarley, Councillor Truffle, Councillor Aiken, Councillor Summer. Against? Councillor Spinks. Motion carried. Councillors, page 22, item 10.2, investment and cash management policy. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. I would like to move a recommendation that the council, 1, adopt the investment and cash management policy as attached with the addition of 2, an additional point 1.4, where council will preference financial institutions that do not finance the fossil fuel industry or certified green or social term deposits where the interest rate is greater than or equal to other available rates at the time of investment.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
I'd like to put a foreshadowed motion
I
in.
need someone to second that first, please. I can consider it. Councillor Akers. I'll come back to you soon, councillor Brophy. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes. So this is an unexpected move for the group, so I apologise for the tactic chosen, but I decided to lean strong into this one. For the community, this policy has had the exact same treatment as the last one. The unanimous decision by the council, I disagree in the argument of majority. I do agree at the decision-making table, that's true, that the majority will ultimately make the decision. But the decision behind the scenes was not from not from an officer recommendation, but from the direction applied through pressure from the new councillor group, not unanimously. So I don't agree with the process. This investment and cash management policy, again, in the bones of it, is a policy to make sure that we are responsibly managing the way that we invest and the way that we manage our cash, and the bones of the policy are strong and I support them and they provide good financial management. I argue that our responsible management for our community goes beyond just financial, that we have a social and environmental responsibility also for our community. The way that we spend and invest our money and borrow our money is important and can have choices made about it bigger than simply financial. It's the same way we go to the shops and we'll make a choice in the products we buy. These are businesses. We are the consumer. We have an opportunity and a responsibility to apply pressure and influence the way that they as a business operate and the products that we want to buy, invest and borrow. So what I have done in the wording of my motion being moved is returned a aspect of the sustainable investment condition to the way that we invest. The exact same as the previous item, the condition has been altered so that it is not within the 0.1%, but is meeting in the middle, where the percentage of options available must be the same or better. And it is only then that we would create a prioritisation to be able to choose the institution that makes a better environmental decision in the way that they operate. I don't think it's getting it up, but let's have a go. I hope that this will be supported. We have to be making better decisions, not just for our financial decisions today, but for the generations that come after. There are many people in our community that want us to be making these type of decisions and these type of conditions and priorities, and we did it successfully in the last council term. It was utilised in the last council term. We borrowed through this condition. The bank at the time, I believe, was Bendigo Bank. So it was a reputable institution. It wasn't, you know, we in no way sacrificed on, you know, risk or cost. It even had a better financial option at the time. So it has been utilised. It does provide an option. And even if it doesn't, it means we're trying to do better. We're trying to ask better of the people that we spend and invest our money with. So I hope this will be supported. This is what I require to feel comfortable with this policy, and I hope that I have done a good job in compromising and meeting in the middle to still make you all feel comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Spinks. Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'm happy to second motion. I was happy with the policy it was. I see it makes no difference financially to where we're at. I understand that if all things are being equal, I would assume that those making the investments would have invested in the clean green one in any case. So quite happy to second a motion that highlights that. You know, without trying to bring any other political issues or that type of stuff into our investment policy, but certainly happy that if, you know, we do need to be aware of what's going on in our environment, we have some responsibility there, and see that this is a reasonable thing to support.
Thank you, councillor Akers. Are there any councillors who'd like to speak against the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saleh. I'm just reading the actual policy, and I think the summation is quite good. Investment activities will be conducted in the following order of priority: preservation of capital, liquidity of cash flow, and investment return. I think that's enough. I don't think we need to complicate it any further. I think the way it's written in the actual policy document suits our needs superbly. Thank you, Mayor Sully.
Are there any councillors that would like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor Saley. I'd like to, sorry, against. Was that?
Yeah, no, so for, are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Against? Yeah, you.
I'm against it, yes. I'd like to echo councillor Schubert's words there. The basis of this policy well covered, I think. I don't think we need to be adding back these environmental preferences. More I could say, but I'll probably insult somebody, so I won't.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer?
To the motion, just for everyone's information, this was communicated with us this morning, so I really don't know the repercussions of how it might change. I honestly, though, from having had last term, I don't think it's going to make a huge impact on our budget at all. Probably the same decisions would be made anyway, because there is such a large ideologically driven component of our staff, and I think that that's something they may decide if there's absolutely no impact to the budget whatsoever, whether we spell it out for them or not. It does seem like a very political thing to do, considering there's such a small impact on this. But again, if this makes one councillor feel more comfortable and it's not going to change any impact on our budget, I mean, we've already given it a lot of visibility just by discussing it today. A lot of oxygen is going to flow into this issue again. I don't think it's helpful to keep having these arguments. So if it's easier to just put it in there, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you, councillor Summer. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion? Councillors will go to the vote. All those in favour? Oh. Well, no one spoke against it, was only spoke.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, yeah, right to reply. Sorry, yeah, he did. Yeah, sorry, councillor Spinks, right to reply.
Thank you. And yeah,
Yeah.
unbothered, I fully expected that. And all I want to say is ultimately what we talk about when we talk about our budget is no different to everyone's home budgets. When you go to purchase something, you are going to make considerations of cost, but also other aspects. This is no different to that. It's not ideological, it's responsible. It's just good decision making, and what I'm asking, I think, is better decision making. So hopefully it will be supported. Thank you.
Councillor Spinks. Councillors, all those in favour? Against? Motion lost. Councillors will now go to foreshadowed motion. Councillor Brophy, did you want to table that, please?
Thank you, Mayor Saley. I would like to table the council adopt the investment and cash management policy as attached, the original one that was being put forward.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
Second that, Mayor Saley.
Councillor Eddy. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, firstly, to thank councillor Spinks too. I think had we been given a little bit more notice, it might have been a change in the last particular one. I would like to have seen some data in regards to, what had happened over the last, 4 years and probably 10 years in terms of, where our investments and cash management has gone in regards to renewables and so forth. So I would have liked to have seen some more of that before I'd made an informed decision. But going back to this particular one, the investment and cash management policy sets out a framework for the management of council's cash on hand. The policy balances exposure to risk and liquidity requirements while seeking to optimise return on investments and remaining compliant with the Local Government Act 2020. Those who've heard me speak when it comes to finances, and particularly around the monthly and quarterly reports, particularly and around the current and forecasted liquidity ratios, it's one of my pet areas where I certainly look at. And it's assets over liabilities. Can we afford our future projects, our ongoing commitments? Can we pay out the debts and liabilities if things were, to hit the fan, for instance? The answer is yes, we can. And an investment and cash management policy does just that. The policy objective is to ensure that the funds are invested in accordance with legislative requirements, ensure effective controls are in place, to minimise investment risk, ensure investments are appropriately managed, and achieve a return on investment while securing sufficient liquidity for council's operations.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Councillor Eddy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I think that was very well covered by councillor Brophy, but I would like to say my hat's off for the strategy. I think that was brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Eddy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. Pretty sure I've articulated at this point. I don't support the changes that have been made to this document in its lead up. The lack of an environmental lens across it is disappointing from my perspective. I will just address, I do find it interesting, the queries and concerns around a lack of information, because nobody asked that when we took it out. But that's okay. Guess we'll move through. And also, just to respond to the comments around wishing there was more information. I thought of this morning. I shared it immediately when I was able to. As far as I'm concerned, I tried really hard to work with the group as openly as possible, as soon as I possibly could. If that was not enough, I genuinely don't know what more I could have done, but I will not be supporting this today. Thank you.
Councillor Spinks, are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Any councillors like to speak to the motion? No, very good. Right to reply, councillor Brophy?
No, thank you.
Very good. Councillors will now go to vote. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried.
Division.
All those in favour, councillors? Councillor Schubert, councillor Eddy, councillor Brophy, councillor Scully, councillor Truffle, councillor Akers, councillor Summer. Against? Councillor Spinks. Motion carried. Councillors, page 25, item 10.3, May 2025 monthly financial report. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Akers.
Happy to move that council note the May 2025 monthly financial report attached.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Brophy.
Second that motion, Mayor Sally.
Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor Sarley. Well, look, it's pretty much tracking along as we would have expected. Our year-to-date adjusted underlying results, a surplus of 11.07 million at the moment, which is on track to which is what we forecasted at the end of the third quarter. As the financial year progresses, we're expecting a deficit of 4.6 million, which once again is on track to where we've been. Improvement over the years, basically due to an insurance claim on property relating to the flooding in 2022 and the storm event in March 23, and those things have been the case for a couple of months now. Capital Works is the one that I assume the team's well on track with 3 days to go. I have been monitoring the Katandra renovations. So I've been to the Katandra store. What's it got, 4 days to go? The toilets are done, I see, and it'll be a tight line for that old hall to get a roof and walls on it by the 30th, but I'm sure we'll work something out and our capital budget will be spent. But we've delivered 35.39 million of capital works. To date, we've got a forecast spend of 47.9, which is 1.19 million decrease compared to the Q3 review, and the decrease is due to identified savings in some drainage projects. But as long as we can spend some money, we're all pretty well on track. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Akers. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Just briefly, that with the penultimate month being reported fiscally, we're certainly well on track, as councillor Akers has pointed out, with our year-to-date forecasts. You know, the $11 million surplus with the adjusted underlying deficit of 4.6 million is an incredible turnaround in the council performances from the last few years. Yes, we've had COVID. Yes, we've had floods. Yes, we've had zero rate increase in 2 consecutive years. But it's really been the reviewing of each department and not spending like drunken sailors that has really brought about this particular result to the fore, and I congratulate all those.
Councillor Brophy, any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 28, item 10.4, procurement policy. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Summer.
I'll move that the council adopt the procurement policy as attached.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion, Mayor Sarley.
Yeah, Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I had reservations about deferring this policy last term. I was actually afraid that any new policy would weaken local content as well as weaken socially driven outcomes, but I'm pleasantly surprised because this policy appears to have been strengthened in those areas. As Councillor Spinks mentioned earlier, council has a huge budget and a large proportion of that is paid to private industry to deliver council projects. And I'm sure Councillor Spinks will agree, how we allocate this money has lasting flow-on impacts in our immediate community and beyond. So under this policy, priority will continue to be given to local companies with a special emphasis on First Nations people and other social enterprise groups. And I'm confident investing equitably will increase Greater Shepparton's economic capacity overall and generate lasting positive change. The only issue that I do have with this policy is the strong wording behind the support of collaborative procurement. We know from our waste contract that collaborative procurement can be complex and wrought with issues, and that other councils don't always align with our local priorities. So I'll loosely foreshadow a motion with alternative wording that dampens down that enthusiasm, even though I've moved this one. That's just around the collaborative process. But other than that, I'm very happy with the policy. So.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. For those who know me, I'm a very strong advocate for locally owned and operated businesses getting the opportunity to be considered in procurement for items and for services. But it has to make economic sense. Level the playing field to accommodate local, but not at the expense of ratepayers' funds. I will eagerly watch how this policy is rolled out, being revised, and see how it goes in due course.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillor Spinks.
It is very convenient these three items were all together in this same meeting. We've been talking about them for quite a long time, so I'm glad we're getting them all out of the way at once because it's get old. But I am just taking a moment to recognise I am actually supportive of this and will be intending to vote in favour. But I want to highlight that while I do agree, Councillor Summer, that how our money gets spent is important, and that the local and social portions of the document are very strong, and I'm very supportive of those. The environmental has, again, been watered down. Thankfully not gutted, but watered down. So once again, can't make mention of emissions, cannot say anything to do with climate change or anything to do with that. And I am deeply disappointed that we are no longer referencing our Carbon Zero 2030 plan, because that is an adopted document. That is an active current document that is guiding council, and so should, regardless of personal opinions around the table, should still be informing documents. So I'm disappointed that reference has been removed, but credit where credit is due, there is absolutely still an environmental sustainability factor in this document, and most importantly, it still retains the 10% weighting in procurement, which is the point that was introduced by the last council term. We introduced the 10% local, the 10% social, well, no, it's not 10% social, sorry. 10% local with the social procurement lens and the 10% environmental. Both very important. Most importantly, as Councillor Brophy highlighted, financial and project management comes first as the highest priority. But having these additional lenses means that we can make sure that our procurement processes are looking at the other ways that we can benefit our community through the way that we spend money. So I'm overall very happy with this document, very glad to see that those three elements of, triple bottom line decision making are still in there strongly, but, I am disappointed with the reduction of focus on environmental sustainability and the removal of the connection to the adopted plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any councillors like to speak for the recommendation? Will I reply, Councillor Summer?
Yes, thank you. If we moved the procurement policy last term, all that environmental component would still be intact. So I'm not sure why we didn't do that. I also wasn't aware of any concerns leading up to endorsing the procurement policy. I'm quite surprised there is an objection. There was plenty of time to raise concerns. Removing references to environmental isn't quite accurate. It's actually removing references to specific climate change outcomes that are beyond largely our control. This is local procurement. We can't fix the world with local procurement. I'd much prefer to have all of that inflammatory language taken out so we can focus on the job at hand, roads, rates and rubbish, and get on with the job, basically.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Councillors will now go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? No. Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 31, item 5, contracts awarded under delegation May 2025. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? I'm going to move it, councillors.
Sally, I move the recommendation that Council 1 note the contract awarded under delegation pursuant to a formal procurement process for the reporting period, and number 2, note the request for tender advertised but not yet awarded.
Councillor Schubert, can I have a councillor second that motion, please?
I'll second that, Mayor Saley.
Councillor Schubert, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think it's self-explanatory, Mayor Sally. Thank you.
Councillor Eddy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Same here, Mayor Saley, pretty self-explanatory.
Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Councillors like to speak for the motion? No, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 33, item 10.6, revenue and rating plan 2025 to 2029. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Someone.
Thanks, Ms. Sally. I'll move that adopt the revenue and rating plan 2025-2029 as attached.
Thank you, councillor Summer. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Saley. I second that motion.
Bit nervous there, councillor Summer.
Yeah, I hope I don't.
Would you like to speak to the motion?
I'd love to speak to the motion. I just hope it's all accurate. But from my perspective, developing the plan, this has really been an epic journey. It's been intense education. It's been strong guidance by staff. And I'm the kind of nerd who finds revenue and rates very interesting, but unfortunately that doesn't always extend to the broader community because it is quite complex. New councillors have had a very steep learning curve, and I'd like to really thank the staff for their patience, and they've had a very candid approach, and they've ensured we all have a detailed understanding of how council operates. I'm more impressed this term than I have been in any other term. Everyone knows what everything's about. Arguably, there's been only minimal changes to this plan, arguably. We will apply the 3% rate cap based on capital improved value as set by state government. Waste charges will remain steady. We'll still apply a differential rate. Only farmers will get some reprieve because they carry more of the rating burden. And much to my chagrin, because I'm never quite happy about these, but the cultural and recreational land differential will remain and the municipal charge will hold steady. But I'm comfortable with that because I understand all councillors know what the municipal charge means. It means higher rated properties will pay less and lower rated properties will pay more. 50% of local councils continue to apply the municipal charge, and it's very difficult to remove something once it's been in place for a long time. So I appreciate the work by staff who've shown us modellings on how we could exit that, and I respect the room that there is not an appetite to do that at this point. So overall, I think it's a great plan. I'm really excited to set it in stone so we can continue on our council journey with a strong front foot.
Very good, councillor Summer. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saley. Certainly echoing what councillor Summer says. This is complex. It's simple in its nature and its concept, but complexity sets in around the detail and the determination. Councils have choice in determining of the setting of the configurations around the rates, charging to some degree, but there are some parameters which we have to work in and around. This year, our finance team, obviously led under corporate services from Chris Teitzel, but particularly to Claire Barnes and Olivia and Jacqueline, have done a mighty job in the preparation for today. This plan, along with the budget, has been one of the most comprehensive, probably the most patient and the most professional that I've experienced in the time that I've been here. The amount of work that's gone in there and the feedback and briefing after briefing has been exemplary, so thank you for that. I believe that our 4-year revenue and rating plan is soundly just, is fairly attributed, and one that will see us through to the next council term.
Very good. Thank you, councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Akers.
Thanks, Ms Ali. Yes, I again would like to echo the sentiments to the staff and the support that they've given council over the past months in getting us to today and working us through council revenue and rating plan. I mean, it's an important task. It sets out the next 4 years about how we think we're going to fund our activities. So it's something I think we all took very seriously, and I guess it helped as well as all the other things we've had to get across over the last 6 months as some fairly new councillors. It got us up to speed as to how we might fund our activities. I guess basically we were fairly supportive of past rating and revenue plan that was in place, and there had been significant consultation across Greater Shepparton with the community to come to this point. And I guess towards the end we recognised, and I guess I need to say as a farmer, that the farmers had started to bear an unfair burden of the rating load, and council have moved to try and correct this, which I'm sure a council that has a focus on farmers and the rural industries here, that will be appreciated, and I thank fellow councillors for considering it. It's a time when I'm sure those in rural communities are seeing state and federal governments walk away from them, so it's appreciative that we can see local government giving support to local farmers in their endeavours to help our community and create profitable businesses here. And so I think that it is an important note that we've made that change, and I think the other one, it's very important that moving forward, that as a council we've really understand where our money is going to come from. And I mean, I guess we've got to a stage where we understand, you know, half our revenue comes from rates and charges, but that's only half, and we need to keep a strong focus on where the other half's going to come from, because I think that other half going forward in the society that we're in today is going to get harder and harder to find.
Thank you, councillor Akers. Are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion?
Yes. Absolutely echoing all the comments so far. A wonderful process. It's been very in-depth, very supportive, and there's a lot of good in this. I do think it's worth also mentioning, very supportive of councillor Akers' explanation of the change to the farming rate. Just being really clear though that this is a pie, and when you pull one lever it moves against another, so it has meant that the commercial has ever so slightly increased. It is not simply a matter of us choosing an amount or being able to reduce without impacts or consequences somewhere else. So we had to make that decision. But it does, it is in response to an inequity that was occurring about the way that the pie was being distributed. So I'm supportive of the change. I just want to make sure that's very clear in how we talk about it. I also just want to share, this is something I guess Councillor Summer agree on in really different ways. I don't like the municipal charge, but I don't like it because having the municipal charge is a flawed option, and not having the municipal charge is a flawed option, and there's no third option. So I think that regardless, that one is always going to be, I guess, a bit controversial sort of in the decision-making process. But what I was really interested by in this round of process is that we very strongly engaged with our community panel, and the deliberative engagement that occurred around this document came back with a lot of the same concerns and views and thoughts of the council table, both now and previously. They also came back and said they weren't sure which was the right choice about having or not having a municipal charge. They also weren't sure about what was fair around how we distribute the rates among the community. And I think it was just really interesting to see that even when you have this discussion much broader than just 9 and much broader than, and with that same level of, or comparatively, that same level of detail, it's a very complicated, complex discussion to have, and you're making a very big decision for a large number of people. So I think it was really valuable to have that process happen sort of alongside our discussions, and to see that the conclusions they reached were very similar to the conclusions that we reached. So for that and for our own discussions, I feel very comfortable endorsing this document today. I think that this creates as equitable a rating structure as we can provide to our community for the next 4 years. So.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Yes, Councillor Schubert.
Thanks, Mayor Sarley. Look, I just really wanted to thank the staff. I came in as a councillor extremely confused about rating plans and goodness knows what else. In the report detail, it talks about engagement with councillors. I would say education of councillors, because I've got to say, through the staff's processes, I am much, much more understanding of what the revenue and rate plan, what it is, what it's about and all that sort of stuff. So the people who are behind all this, I just extend my heartfelt appreciation. So thank you very much to the staff.
Councillor Schubert. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No? Councillor Truffle?
Yeah. Mayor Sally, same. I'd like to back up what Rod just said as far as the staff come in. It was an education rather than a look at the situation and read it and understand it. So it's been really good. So this year's been education. We'll see how we go next year. It's good.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Councillor Truffle. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Ready?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. I'd just like to thank the staff and executive as well. It's been a mighty job trying to get across all this, and I think we've achieved it pretty well, so I'll leave it at that.
I'll save my thank you for the budget. The next item. So you're going to have to do it all again, councillors. So that's the main one, the next one. So if there's nothing else, councillors, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. All right, here we go. Councillors, on page 40, 41 and 42 of the agenda, item 10.7, 2025-2026 budget, there is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward?
Happy to move.
Please. Thank you. Bakers.
The council adopt the 25-26 budget as attached on page 40, 41 and 42.
Thank you, Councillor Akers. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
Second that motion, Mayor Sarley.
Thank you. Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
I will. I'll take the 3 pages as read and talk to some other aspects of the budget. Firstly, thank you to Fiona, our CEO, and all the team for the work that's gone into developing this budget. And I'd like to speak to all the team in that we know they listened, they had a new council, and they've come up with a budget that I think this council's quite happy with. So congratulations, and we do appreciate the enormity of the work that's gone in over the last few months. It has been a big few months with a lot of, we don't do a rating plan every year, I hope. I hope that's going to last us 4 years. We do a budget, but there's a lot of things that have been in this past 6 months that have been extra work because of a lot of new councillors. I think we've got through it pretty well. And Fiona, we do appreciate the support that the councillors have had, and certainly the 100% support that we've felt from the staff. So let me go through and try to look at what the budget says to me, I guess is the way to simply do it in my limited time, to something that we've spent 6 months trying to develop. It's looking to manage a true operating surplus of $3.9 million. And so that's something that we as a council said that we wanted to be operating in was a surplus. It was anticipated to be another year off, but we've got there, and that we're predicting a surplus in this budget, allowing for $8.95 million in land sales from GB Link. We've continued to prioritise renewal of existing assets in this budget, and I think that's important at this point in time. We've got to get the management of our current assets in order before we go too far with new ones, and there's plenty of them that need attention, as we all know. So congratulations on that point. We see a rate increase of 3% in line with our cap. Our curbside services have remained steady with a 1% increase, less than a 1% increase to households. We've looked at the rating differentials. They've been adjusted in recognition of the rate burden that has shifted to the farming community over recent times. And we've looked at that rating burden, and it's been changed from 90% to 80% for farmers. The budget shows our assets at a value of $1.5 billion. So we have some assets in Greater Shepparton. We've got borrowings at the moment of $12.5 million, looking to increase those to $19 million with stage 1 of GB Link this year. The budget shows that GB Link being reduced in the 26-27 year with the sale of properties, and the projected decrease in the debt by 28-29 is set to $7 million. I think it's important also to highlight, and I've appreciated that I think we've had a better look and made more publicly available where we see the budget going over the next 4 years. So it's given the community a bit of an idea of what to expect. And I think that's a mature approach, and it helps take the community along with us. We have an expected income this year of approximately $200 million, of which approximately half comes from ratepayers, half from fees, grants and asset disposal. This budget recognises our social responsibilities, our community responsibilities and the responsibilities that we have to ratepayers. Hence, we have $160 million in operating expenses, $66 million in capital works, of which includes $20 million of carryover from this financial year. So I think it's important to understand and mention that this council intends to put into the community through spending $226 million over the next 12 months. Moving forward, I'm sure this council will have strategic objectives that do align with our community groups. And I'm sure the ones that we've put forward now do. But I continue to encourage those in our community to get involved in their community groups and their local groups and have input into those plans to have an effect in your local community. If you want things done in your local communities, make sure you get it into the community plans, because I can give you the guarantee that I'm sure this current council will look at those community plans when it's looking where we need to be investing in local communities. And we won't continue to ask people to go out, spend nights in cold halls like Telegarutna's going to on this Wednesday night if we're not going to listen. We will listen to what comes out of those community plans and look to get it into our budgets over the next 4 years. As I said, this budget does attempt to project forward 4 years and give the community insight as to what's coming. We've got $66 million in capital works coming up over the next 12 months, and I thought I should just highlight a few of those projects that may be more relevant to my area than some others. The Telegarutna Hall is to get and I should start with the most local, I suppose, a renewal works. And it's a great building in Greater Shepparton. It has a heritage overlay.
Sorry, Councillor, because no doubt the people of your Pine Lodge Board would be excited, but you'll have to share that somewhere else.
Have we got a 2-minute extension?
No, that's so get them in first next year.
I've got to write a reply. I'll have to finish it then.
Yeah, someone object to it so you can get his right reply. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Firstly, thank you, Councillor Akers, superbly summarised. And good to see that you were looking for all of Greater Shepparton and not just Pine Lodge Ward, which is good. The budget, over $200 million. That's an incredible feat because when we came in 4.5 years ago, I think we were sitting at about 160 million. So a far increase in what comes in and what goes out. This is always the biggest agenda item of the year, but in reality, it is just a point in time. It's a financial snapshot of income and expenses over the next financial year and a stake of what our priorities are. How this council, at this time, sees financially our priorities and passing this particular budget actions those into play. Going forward, what do we see? Yes, we see some big ticket items that need to be accounted for. The Lenny Street drainage, Princess Park multi-pavilion, the shared pathways, road renewals, footpath renewals, playgrounds, recreation reserve upgrades, new estates, and of course, we've got GV Link. We've still got a lot on the plate to be able to manage. A slight bit of history. If I went back 4 years ago, sitting here, the adjusted operating result was a deficit of $16.7 million. So the turnaround for this budget to be $3.9 million in the surplus is extraordinary. We were at the tail end at that point of COVID, about 16 months away from the October 22 floods, and we passed the first of 2 years of zero base rate increases, unprecedented. And not to mention the increase that we had in our infrastructure costs and other associated costs, insurance, etc. Yet still we're able to carry on business as normal, still be able to meet most of those capital projects, run early childhood, provide waste services, fund a new skate park over in Tatura, and the list goes on. Fees and charges for this coming year, in looking at the financial year, in the main, have been increased about 2.5% to 3%, which is in line with what the rate cap is, but it is well below what CPI is. So we've been able to manage that. We talk about the cost shifting, and that really continues as state responsibilities are affixed to councils, unfortunately. Perfect one example was the Emergency Services and Volunteer Fund. Going back years ago, there was a fire levy, which was on your insurance policies. Less people taking out insurance policies, therefore less funding coming in. So they restructured that and had the local councils collect the money on their behalf. We're looking at perhaps around about $4 million being collected in our particular municipality. Money that really should be collected by the State Revenue Office. And will that amount go back into our region and to fund the CFA, the SES, etc.? We're not sure that that's going to actually happen. There is a moratorium there for primary producers, but that only is going to last 12 months. So the cost shifting is something that we have to be mindful of. It's not our money, it comes in and goes straight out again. There are dozens of worthwhile community projects as highlighted by Councillor Akers and funding needs within our community. But we cannot fund them without being in a financial strong position. And we are certainly on the right trajectory for that. And some of those projects, they can now be looked at that are more economically favourable in the years to come. And I look forward to those ones coming through the communities, coming from individuals and coming from businesses that we can actually go into partnership with because we have a very sound budget.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Councillor Spinks. Oh, yep.
Yep, I'll go.
Yep.
Yes, so this is a very exciting budget. And it's an interesting time just reflecting on it because, I remember being a first-time councillor and getting across everything and then creating your first budget is a momentous task and very exciting. But having the new lens of being a returning councillor and coming in, it does feel like a little bit of a pause moment in the end of one era and the beginning of the next. We don't have the council plan finalised yet, so this still kind of is speaking to the existing council plan while starting to take into consideration new priorities. As well, it really works on over the last 4 years, as Councillor Brophy said, we came in unexpectedly with quite a strong deficit, and I don't think that was as well understood even by the councillor before, just through the way numbers exist. But we've spent 4 years working really hard to get that down back to a surplus, and this year feels like not only the result of that work, but also the support of the new council coming in and still having that intention and direction. So feels like a bit of a collective team effort between the two, which is very, very nice for our community. We're now looking at, you know, when I've described what this budget was going to look like as a draft, I have said it is a bare bones budget, and I think I've said that like 4 years in a row, and I'm pretty sick of saying it, to be honest. We don't get to do any of the fun stuff. But it is bare bones. It is really pulling back and making sure we're doing the basics right. And it is projecting, as Councillor Akers said, the 3.99 mil surplus for the first time, in my experience, at the end of the 25-26 financial year. That is thanks to a mountain of work done by the council staff. Huge credit goes to the team, to Fiona and all of the teams involved, all the directors and all of your teams, to hear what we were saying and to create an organisation and a service delivery that reflected it. I'm very glad to see that the, you know, waste cost, we're still looking at what the bin prices are. We're still making sure that they are flat costs and that we are not creating an imposition on the community. They're barely moving. There is so much work going into this document that feels like the passing of the torch almost. It feels like sort of the end of, as a returning councillor, the end of that era and the beginning of us creating something together to move forward with. And it's a very proud moment. This is so exciting to be moving forward with. And I also want to take a moment to just recognise some of the projects which are also a part about that sort of legacy end of the era passing through. When we talk about the Lenny Street drainage, the Princess Park multi-use pavilion, the Yarnagurdy shared path, the Victoria Park Lake Holiday Park potential purchase, even the Lemnos commemorative signage, which was instigated by a previous councillor. These are projects that we worked long and hard on in the previous council that are coming to fruition now, and it's so wonderful to have the support of the new council to be able to move these forward. And it, honestly, you spend so much time talking about these projects. The idea of being on the other side of it is a little bit odd, but so excited to see this budget proposing the completion of some really long fought projects, a operating surplus of 3.99, which looks like 12.94 on paper, but is heavily influenced by GB Link and will come back to a 3.99. And hopefully, personally, hopefully, what that means is that we can then start moving forward on really good financial footing with all our money ducks in a row and can start working to the new and exciting things that we know our community wants and needs and that we just have not been able to responsibly look at yet. But I think the future's looking up, and I'm very happy to endorse this today.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saley. Just very quickly, look, I must admit, staff went out of their way to ensure we understood all aspects of the budget processes, because it was an absolute maze when we walked in here, and I'm very pleased where we landed. Excellent that we have an operating surplus of nearly $4 million. That's something very new, and very pleased to be part of that as a councillor. And as stated in the council agenda, it is an excellent indicator of financial stability in terms of having that $4 million surplus, nearly $4 million surplus. So I'm just so pleased that that's one of the indicators that tells me that we're very, very financially secure. So well done again to all the staff.
Thank you, Councillor Schubert. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croppel? Oh, sorry, was it? Yeah, yep, sorry. Put your hand up or not? So.
No, you're right. Actually, I was taking off my glasses. You're right.
Hey, don't want to speak to it?
No.
That's fine. So, Councillor Summer, sorry about that.
Thanks, Mayor Sally. Just realising I probably should mention 3% rate cap in this item, not the previous item, and that the waste charges will remain steady. Also extremely happy about finally having a surplus. Anyone from last term would understand what a frustration that was, and when we've got so many transformational projects on the go, it just gives us that confidence that we're on the right track. So thank the CEO for that one. A lot of the transformational projects were listed. Just on behalf of Councillor Wickham's constituents, they may be interested in the Yarnagurdy shared path that connects Kidstown with Gemmell Swamp and renewal of the Maroopin Library. We mentioned Big Park Lake Caravan Park and pressing on with an installation of Lemnos commemorative signage initiated by former Mayor Dinny Adam to recognise wartime contributions. Unfortunately, the Big Pear is not included in this budget. So I've been calling on Greater Shepparton to have an honorary big thing for a long time, which seemed like a bit of a pipe dream, and then this falls in our lap. So I'm hoping to be part of a council that's forever remembered as being supportive of this potentially iconic structure that increases tourism, celebrates growers, promotes the fact we produce over 90% of Australians' pears, and complements the very successful Move Museum. But I also acknowledge it's still early days. So I look forward to council working closely with stakeholders and reporting back periodically on the feasibility of investing in this project at a later date. And because I also spoke slightly about the municipal charge in the last item, I might say that staggering the municipal charge out absolutely is an option. Otherwise, there is an option 3, which is lower rates. Because if we have to artificially lower rates for the top end, then potentially the argument would be that our rates are overall too high. So maybe we should continue that conversation, but again, I'm quite happy with what's being presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I think this budget's pretty basic, but it strikes a nice balance between getting things done and a surplus. So very pleased about that. And hopefully we can do more of the same over the next few years.
Ready? Councillor, do any other councillors want to speak to the motion? Otherwise, I'll make some closing comments. Obviously, a really good amount of positive reflection on the budget has been mentioned today around the table. Each year, and in particular since becoming mayor, you always look at, what does this budget mean? And it's been highlighted, and in particular where we've come from, like when I was first elected, and there's a number of councillors around the table now that came in, in effectively the middle of COVID. There was so much uncertainty around what that meant to our community, whether you're in private business or in a government organisation like council. That obviously continued for a couple of years. We got a little bit of a clear airspace where we felt that we could continue to progress going into the 22-23 budget, and then obviously we're hit with a pretty devastating flood event. There's no questions whatsoever that the significant financial impact that had on our council and also our community as well. We went straight into recovery mode and supporting our community in one of the most challenging times, and that extends into what you can and can't do regarding your budget. Again, possibly looked at trying to continually reduce that operating deficit, and unfortunately those uncontrollable circumstances kept arising. Coming into 2024, and this is where I want to highlight, obviously, our CEO, Fiona Legassic, and I extend that acknowledgement to our executive and the staff and managers that all work within the organisation. Council is a big operation, and as we can see, it's a budget that consists of about $200 million. So there is a lot of people involved that allow us to progress and give our community the greatest opportunity to develop new ideas and continue to progress. But as a council, and I think the most important thing is, and we highlighted, is the work that is being done is effectively each 4 years you hand a baton on. Whether you get an opportunity to sit back around the table, great. If not, it's how you want to be remembered as a council, as to what position did you put a new group of councillors in. And we worked very hard last year. It was very clear, albeit many other things that our CEO and executive have to work on, but we gave full confidence and endorsement that last year, I can remember it clearly, we want to be in surplus. We have to be in surplus. And what that allows us to do that is when we get here and we look at endorsing our current budget today, and it's been highlighted by our councillors, around the table the multiple projects, some historic ones like Lenny Street. We're going to do Princess Park. You know, we're working towards undertaking big developments, whether it's at our stadium or considering some really nice and exciting ideas that Councillor Summers also proposed. But you must never, ever underestimate financial stability. And you have to have that as your core foundation always as you continue to progress. So it gives you the greatest opportunity to consider all things when you're faced with those, whether it's challenges or growth opportunities. And that's where I come back to that this budget is effectively about growth and opportunities. We can genuinely consider opportunities in front of us, and the growth also comes as well over this period of time. So congratulations to all the team involved. New councillors have highlighted how supportive they've been throughout this period of time, but I also want to echo those comments that when you're dealing with a budget, you know, nearing $220 million, it doesn't matter whether you're a new or a returning councillor, there is always new things to be learnt, and to go through this cannot be achieved in one particular budget. So well done to everyone, but as a group of councillors, and this is the beauty of council, that once you endorse this, we literally turn the page and we get into things from July 1, and we'll be discussing a new budget before we notice. So no doubt we'll be experts by then. But yeah, well done. Good stuff, plenty of good things, and look forward to sharing this with our community. So if there's nothing else, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried. Opposed? Councillors, page 50, on Shepparton Showgrounds Advisory Committee, there is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please?
I've already put that. Mayor Sally, recommend that the council, 1, appoint the following community representatives to the Shepparton Showgrounds Advisory Committee for a period of 2 years, commencing on the 1st July 2025, and concluding on 30 June 2027. We have Ross Graham, Lloyd Healy, Justin Pearce, Ken Wale, Jagrup Singh, Jeff Skidmore, Julie Winch and Kevin Winch. And 2, I'd like to acknowledge retiring community representatives and thank them for their service to the Showgrounds Advisory Committee. We have Callum Travaskis and Sue Travaskis.
Thank you, Councillor Eddy. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Second.
I'll second that motion.
Thanks, thank you. Councillor Eddy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, I think it's great to see some new faces and a lot of returning members of this committee. Not much gets done without them, put it that way. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Eddy. Councillor,
No, thank you.
councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? And we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 54, item 11.2, Economic Development Strategy 2025 to 2030. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward to the motion, please? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'd like to put forward the following motion, that the council adopt the Economic Development Strategy 2025 to 2030 as attached.
Councillor Brophy. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Have a seconder? Councillor Akers. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, look, thank you. The strategy that's been put forward, this is very much in the doing. The strategy is fine, and I guess from the existing and obviously the new council plan going forward overarches all of that in terms of that is not entirely about the economic development. The council plan is much bigger than that, but this is a very key component of that. And in putting that forward, it's probably got under our guard a little bit in the fact that this is probably more significant because it's budget day. There's so many other things on there, but this standalone is quite a significant document in itself. There are 4 key themes that are developed within that strategy, and one is population and workforce support. One is the regional growth through infrastructure investment. The third one is the business development and industry attraction. And the fourth one, a leading regional visitor and major events destination. So under that, there are a series of strategic directions to be followed under each of those particular themes. This is comprehensive. As I said, the previous one served council and the community very, very well. And I believe this will do the same. But the key word is in the doing, in making sure this particular strategy gets up and running and we're actually doing things in regards to economic development.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Councillor Akers, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, I'd just like to support this economic development strategy as set out for the next 5 years, and I think Councillor Brophy's highlighted our themes, and I think they fit with they highlight where we've got some strengths and what we need to work to. So,
Thank you, Councillor Akers. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? For Summer.
Just to quickly say, I think it's a credit to the organisation how we were presented with, I guess we could say there was room for improvement on the original draft that came to us from the consultant, and it was just, the CEO ran with it. We got some really good stuff in there now. It's all very locally oriented. Totally agree with Councillor Brophy that this has kind of gone under the radar a bit in its importance, but I think he nailed it. So well done to all involved. That's all.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Summer. Any councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Spence.
Yeah, thank you. This is a very good and strong document. We do a lot of work, obviously, in economic development as a council, in the various different, I guess, sort of themes that comes under, whether it's events or tourism or workforce or business supporting, small and large and industry. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, and this document does a really great job at holistically looking at what it means to earn money and spend money in our community, both locally and regionally and beyond. I would like to see what it's really done, the creation of this document, for me, is it's really highlighted that we had a gap strategically overlooking all of these sort of perspectives, and this works really well to bring all of that together, and I'm very supportive of this document and the work that it does. But for me, what it's also done is highlight that it only filled half the gap, and that there should be a parallel strategy alongside it that looks from a community or social development lens about when we aren't spending or earning money, what are we doing here in Greater Shepparton? How do we live? What do we need? So that we can both economically be strong and grow and have everything that we need financially, because money makes the world go round and we all need it. But we as people also have lives outside of that, and we need to make sure that we're looking from both lenses. So I do think for me this has highlighted a gap, and a second strategy that would sit so nicely alongside it as a sort of sister document. But today, with this one in front of us, I'm very happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? We'll now go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on the floor. Councillors, page 62, item 11.3, road discontinuance and sale of Duty Street, Shepparton. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Spinks.
I will move the recommendation as a motion as it is printed on page 62 of the agenda.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillors, if I don't get a seconder, that will lapse.
I'll second this, Mayor Sally.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, sure. So this has been in the works for quite a while. It was identified by the surrounding landowner that this parcel owned by council would be of value to them and could be consolidated. We have gone through the public, I can never remember what this term is. We put it out to public for the public to see, and they had the opportunity to comment on it. Apologies. So we've gone through due process along the way. I reckon we've seen this like 4 or 5 times. It just keeps coming back. But the idea and the concept behind it is to consolidate the land so that the larger parcel owner will own just one piece of land. It has been deemed unrequired by council. It's a small court-ending street that is not used. It was just sitting on no one's radar until it became of use to the proposed landowner. We've put it out to the public. There were no submissions received. There was a concern raised by Councillor Brophy of the original family's connection to the naming of it. The effort and energy has gone into reaching that family and has been deemed resolved. And now we are proposing to finalise this long process that has been undertaken. I am comfortable. I know there has been a little bit of discussion around whether the correct way to move forward with the sale of the land is to make it a financial sale or make it an in-kind sale for future works. I am comfortable with the proposal for it to be in kind that has been suggested by officers, because ultimately this parcel of land has been, the purpose is for it to be consolidated. It makes sense for it to all be one parcel of land. That makes better strategic sense in terms of what that land looks like. And we weren't really going to do anything with it anyway. So the concern about whether we have money in 6 months or 5 years or whatever that looks like, that's the process to work out. But any concern around timing for me is a little bit irrelevant, because this is something that fell in our lap, and I think if we get in the way of this final step, we're doing it really to just get in our own way. So I'm comfortable with the expertise and knowledge of the staff in that how they've suggested we move forward with it, and I think this is a good outcome for both the council and the proposed landowner. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Councillor Eadie, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I'm all for consolidating this land. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. I do, however, take a bit of issue with works in kind. I think it can be, well, for want of a better term, corrupted. And I think if we were to pass this today, that we should seriously look at whether we go down that path in future.
Councillor Eadie, are there any councillors that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Brophy.
Thank you, Mayor Sally. Firstly, I'd like to thank both the Director and the Acting Director of Sustainable Development who got back to me in regards to this particular item. This item and reconfiguring the area has been a going concern for some months now, particularly around the Duty Street and the precinct itself over a number of years now. So this has been sort of, as Councillor Spinks pointed out, been going on for quite some time. I have queried and I've asked a number of questions, as my fellow councillors, and I appreciate all the council officers getting back and the due diligence that they have with that. It's worth remembering that this was the neighbouring landowners who had actually were the proponents of this, that had asked for the road closure and for the purchase as well. It wasn't a council that decided to do it. It was for them to obviously have a one parcel of land, which does make sense in that sense. I note that this went out to the public and there were no objections, and that the market price was stipulated. So that's all good in that sense. I do have concerns around the council enacting the public infrastructure works policy to allow, instead of the market price being paid directly to council, an equivalent amount to be in kind and proposed for works in that particular precinct. Given the history, I lack the confidence of this getting done for the community benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? Any other councillors like to speak for and to the motion? Yeah.
I'll speak to the motion.
Yeah, to the motion.
Look, I think this is a no-brainer, and it's a disused road that for the future of Shepparton we want incorporated into the private title of the land, for a better word, so that we can develop that block in North Shepparton. I do have some concern with when we have a value of 540-something thousand, I think, for the block, how we get that back. And I hold the concerns of some other councillors that it be returned in kind, to be determined at some future point. I think a land transaction's a land transaction, and going forward we probably should be paid for it.
Thank you, Councillor Akers. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer.
I tend to agree with councillors who have reservations. I think if we're selling our assets, the in-kind proponent needs to be removed somehow. I don't know if it's appropriate to apply that scenario or philosophy to this particular motion, because we've gone through the process already, but potentially in future that could be taken out. I wouldn't call it corrupt, but I would say that in-kind could be a little vague in terms of timelines, outcomes and costs. So that is something I'd like to explore But considering the process we had in place and it's abiding by all the rules, then I guess I'd have to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Summer. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion?
I'd just like to say that I didn't actually call it corrupted. I said there was a possibility it could be corrupted. So, if
That clarification, Councillor Eddy. So just highlighting what Councillor Brophy obviously noted in his objection. I mean, if we look at the image, it's pretty self-explanatory what's taking place here in consolidating. If there's a works in kind issue, then that's a whole different discussion versus what we've got to deal with now. And what's in front of us now is effectively to determine whether we want to remove this asset off our books, which makes good reason to do that because it doesn't really do anything to what council wanted to achieve from a personal perspective, but acknowledging that this consolidates those two particular titles there into one big title. The sale of the land in kind is not a bad process to be undertaken because what happens is it can sort of eliminate a lot of the technical steps that have to be undertaken, which is selling the land, money comes in, and then we've got to try and determine how we want to then go out and spend it, whether it's under the umbrella of these particular developers or we go and do the work ourselves. So we're removing an asset, we carry a value aligned to that asset and works get undertaken to that value or less or more, and we negotiate through that process. I mean, from my perspective, it's a pretty clear, simple and efficient way of doing business with this particular parcel of land. So I have no problems with it and I'm going to support it. Acknowledging though, if there's a works in kind discussion that needs to happen, that is separate to what we're dealing with now. So that's probably it.
It's not.
Point D quite clearly says it's not separate.
Yes, you're dealing with this particular one here, but the works in kind policy and what we're effectively wanting to do moving forward, if we want to amend that, that is a different discussion today. So I'm comfortable with.
Order, it's point 4 there. If you go to the detail of the paper, it clearly says it on page 6, but that's another issue.
What it?
Design and construct, it says what they'll do, what they've agreed to.
Yeah, I'm happy with this proposal, but if we want moving forward, yeah, I'm happy with this proposal, but moving forward, if we don't want works in kind to be undertaken, then that's a separate discussion to what's in front of us now. So you're resolving what's in front of you now, which I'm personally comfortable. If other councillors aren't, that's okay. But moving forward, if we want to work through what a works in kind policy looks like and amend it and do other things or don't have one at all, that's a discussion for another day. So any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shaw.
Probably slightly against, just a point I'd like to make. Under risk management, strategic risk officers consider that the primary potential risk is selling the road at a value not in accordance with a formal valuation. They have managed the risk by engaging somebody else, but I would think there's a lesson to be learnt in that formal evaluation in the future, is the point I'd make there, Sally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Nothing else, councillors, before we go to vote?
Point of clarification, just.
Actually, you get a right of reply because of Councillor Brophy speaking again. Do you want that clarification first?
Yeah, clarification
Yeah.
first. Has there been a motion foreshadowed? Okay, sorry, right of reply.
Yeah.
Thank you. Look, I'm comfortable with it, so no reply required.
Okay, very good. Okay, councillors, we'll now go to vote. All those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Councillors, we go to page 68, item 12.1, resource recovery, service optimisation. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion? Councillor Summer.
I'm more than happy to move that the council, 1, approve introduction of resource recovery hard waste collection service, undertake procurement process to facilitate introduction of resource recovery hard waste collection service commencing 1st of July 2026. 2, receive a detailed report outlining the utilisation trends of the resource recovery centres following the commencement of the resource recovery hard waste collection service. And 3, commence phase 2 of circular economy optimisations as defined in this report.
Sound like you've been waiting 14 years.
Oh.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Spinks.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Summer, would you like to speak to the motion?
I sure would, and thank you. I'm just so happy to finally move a motion that does include the provision of hard rubbish collection for all of Greater Shepparton. Wow. So to explain my excitement, there's some background. 14 years ago, a very unknown young mum ran for council calling for hard rubbish collection. That person was me. Now, I didn't know a lot about council back then, but I did know about roads, rates and rubbish, and that the community desperately wanted hard rubbish collection. I'd seen the service provided in Melbourne, and like many others, used those days as opportunities to acquire disused items like mirrors, chairs and even shoes. It's absolutely true. One man's trash is another man's treasure. So to me, hard rubbish seemed like the ultimate in recycling. This was even before China stopped taking Australian waste and forced our hand towards developing a more sustainable circular waste economy, which has finally come around and justified hard rubbish collections. During first term, we did get a scaled back version of a hard rubbish collection into our waste management strategy, but unfortunately it was never acted on. And when I began asking about steps towards that, the policy was reviewed and that version of hard rubbish was taken out. Overlapping first and second term, council included a provision for hard rubbish collection for those who were elderly or disabled. Again, this was never acted on, and unfortunately this, right or wrong, it gave a distinct impression that our waste department was very comfortable doing what they've always done under that user pays model. During my third term, multiple councillors were elected with hard rubbish as their priority, and I thought the day had finally come. But the council report that came back was financially unattainable, so that idea was abandoned. So over the years, I'd actually got the information from different hard rubbish collection models, got the costing, so I really suspect that report was deliberately over-conservative, but now we have innovative directors willing to think outside the box to deliver what the community actually wants, and a very supportive CEO for new ideas. And this is ironically the only term I haven't used hard rubbish during an election campaign, because quite frankly, I had given up. Here we are, less than 12 months in, and we've got a solid option in front of us. It's so exciting. It is true though that all good things come with a cost. So we do need to review our transfer stations after we've initiated this service. If we pick up rubbish from your doorstep twice a year, we're likely to find efficiencies that may cover the full expense of the service. Not everyone has a trailer or a car for that matter, so more people will be serviced, more useful resources will be collected, and less costly airspace will disappear from Cosgrove landfill. And I'm aware this is another major waste transition for our community, which could be met with some angst as people have to adjust again to a new system. Council will ensure all residents are aware of the service, and we expect it to be operational by mid-2026. And I do ask for public understanding during the initial phase, because there will be rubbish on nature strips. The initial take-up is likely to be very strong and eventually taper off as more waste resources are collected. Overall, it's a win-win for council, the community and the environment. I'm just so happy. If I've got time, I'd like to read a poem that I wrote while arguing with the late John Gray about hard rubbish way back in 2023. I've used spring cleaning as an analogy. Please, can I finish it though, because it'd be weird if
I don't ring the bell. The bell rings, unfortunately, we'll have to stop you. So go, make it a quick one.
When you tackle spring cleaning, what do? Tuck it under the carpet or into your shoe? Only so many years will this method maintain a house nice and neat without any disdain. The crevice is full, no room there at all. It starts to flood out all over your floor. What happened? Oh no, what can we do? The job is too big now for me or for you. Never was a house in so much distress, but in order to clean, we must first make a mess. Houses free from all problems except one, that annual day when spring cleaning's begun. So fly dirty laundry for neighbours to see. Do it for liberty, fly them out free. Remove all those shackles like that sticky floor and throw all that garbage right out your door. Don't waggle your finger or poke out your tongue when I say there's more work, much more work to be done. So I couldn't be happier about this one.
Oh, very good. And I think you even distracted Janica. You forgot to ring the bell, so very good.
Thank you.
Good work, Councillor Summer. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure, hugely supportive of this. I think this is absolute credit to Councillor Summer for her persistent and consistent passion for this particular matter, and also huge credit to the council's waste team that are very passionate about the circular economy principles and improving, modernising and optimising the way that Greater Shepparton does waste. And waste, believe it or not, is an incredible resource, and there is so much opportunity. Obviously, everyone is aware, we have moved through our curbside transition program and are mostly on the other side of that. But now we've talked about how we deal with our regular bins, and now we're moving into that next stage of, well, what do we do with those larger items that don't fit into a green, yellow, red or purple, and make it more equitable and smarter for all of our communities. So I'm so excited to see this now making sense from every direction, financially, socially, it's environmentally. This is now being proposed to us as the smart option to move forward with, which is so exciting. The proposed process would be for 2 free collections for each household, with the opportunity to purchase more if it was required, and also reaching every household in the community. So this is absolutely not just a Shepparton thing, this is from every corner to every edge. We want to make sure that every community member has access to being able to remove those items from their property, which is not something that the resource centres currently provide. There are plenty of households that do not have the resources, the abilities, the opportunity to access the resource centres fairly and equitably. This will correct that, which is good for our community. It's as simple as that. It is good for our community. What we're approving today is to start the process. So there will be a procurement process for the introduction of the service, which would commence 1st July 2026. So it isn't going to be in the next couple of months, but it's coming. And there'll be a lot of, we'll do all of the education, behaviour change work that needs to happen alongside it. We're not just dumping it, pun not intended, dumping it on our community. We are going to work with you the same as we learnt from previous changes. But this is working towards a much stronger, smarter way for every community member to be able to dispose of their hard waste. And then naturally through that, we would expect that we would review whether people are still using and how they're using the resource centres. That would be the very natural next step, but with no intended or pre-decided outcomes there. So really happy to be approving this and to see this come to life over the next 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spinks. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion?
The motion.
Any councillors like to speak to?
Thank you. Firstly, I'm certainly open-minded to this, and however, I do have a number of concerns. Can I say from the outset that this is economically driven, not environmentally, not because the public have recently asked for it, but because this council and many other councils around Victoria have astronomical increases to their waste charges. For example, the EPA levy is nearly going up to, in the next financial year, up to nearly 30% more. And so I certainly understand this from an economic perspective. Hard rubbish, some people over time have called for this, Councillor Sum is one of them, and others as well. Some have called for tip tickets, some have called for longer hours at the resource recovery centres. This isn't driven by the ask, make no mistake, that people have come to us and said, we want hard rubbish here and now. In 2024 council elections, of the top 20, I had a look through, the top 20 issues, hard rubbish was not once raised, certainly not with me. I'm not saying that people didn't want it, but it wasn't one of the major issues coming into that particular election. I had certainly misgivings on hard rubbish itself, seeing what's happened in other municipalities. Twice a year to be collected for a certain amount, human nature tells me that people won't necessarily wait for 6 months, won't necessarily adhere to the correct amount being placed on the nature strip. But I am open to feedback, and from those that I represent, and I do want to know this and what they actually think. And why I'm asking this is because to date there has been no direct public engagement with this particular policy. That there's been no surveys, no feedback. We do with most other things that we have, but we have not here, so I sort of ask why have we not gone down that path. Point 2 in particular is a real concern to me in regards to the detailed report outlining the utilisation trends of the resource recovery centres. When will this particularly happen? Of course, most people will participate with the hard rubbish first up even for the first 12 months. The uptake, as Councillor Summers said, will be very strong. I suspect that, absolutely. But the utilisation trends of the resource recovery centres should be a further 12 months after that, as at, say, the 1st of July 2028. That then gives you enough, you've had the initial uptake, but then you'd settle down after that, and that will give you a really good guide. So no major changes probably should be made to the Shepparton or Admona centres until that time. I'm certainly not being an inhibitor, but I'm being pragmatic, realistic, and wanting due process in the decision-making for this particular decision. The waste space is a really interesting one, and is one that we need to progress, but with full information, certainly better education and absolute transparency.
Very good, thank you, Councillor Brophy. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Saley. I'm just pleased to read, and I'm sort of agreeing with sort of what Councillor Brophy and Councillor Summer. This is a great thing. It's a wonderful initiative, and Councillor Summer's been at it, what, 12 years now, so supporting it. So thank you, Councillor Summer. The executive summary, and I'm just, I suppose, highlighting the first paragraph. Greater Shepparton City Council is committed to ensuring the provision of waste and recycling services, brackets waste service, meet state government legislative requirements and strategic objectives, whilst, and this is the important part for me, really important, whilst considering local community and industry needs now and into the future. That to me is absolutely crucial to make sure our ratepayers get heard throughout this whole process. Thank you, Mayor Saley.
Councillor Schubert. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Summer, yes, you have been advocating for this for many, many years, and yeah, sort of felt like every year during our previous term that you would raise it around each budget time. So I commend you for sort of continue that conversation despite.
The director needs the credit.
Yeah, I'm going to get to Gary, don't worry about that. But what I would say is that despite the fact that whether it was ran specifically from an individual councillor or whatever it might have been sort of spoken publicly through an election campaign, is that there is no doubt that conversations had been undertaken in our previous council term, acknowledging that for this to be done from a strategic level and financially backed up and go through that process to allow us to give it that due consideration. And today is a step that won't really come into effect, you know, presuming we get through the procurement process and that all stacks up, and then we get through that additional start time of July next year. That obviously Gary and your waste team, I want to extend compliments to you and going through this diligently to ensure that it wasn't just about waste on your nature strip and we'll just work out how to pick it up. We've had a significant change in the way we conduct our waste collection more broadly here in Greater Shepparton. And we've seen that undertaken, that when we did the curbside transition, that we were able to adapt and include the nappy service, which has been great. The larger recycling bin, again, which was an addition. So when I look at this here now, what it is effectively implementing a significant culture change in our community to know that this won't just happen overnight. There'll be a significant uptake. I mean, who wouldn't want to take advantage of this? And as Councillor Spinks noted, this is every pocket of Greater Shepparton, that not everyone has the ability to get access to a ute, a trailer, or pay for, you know, skip bins and whatnot. So now we are effectively saying that if you don't have that option, we are coming to you. And if you don't uptake that, then that's not a problem. The resource recovery centres are open and will continue to be a part of that service ongoing. Acknowledging though that, like any significant change that you have, that reviews of all our assets and strategic direction come into, and that's not something that would happen until effectively as we get into this process and understand the change and the culture shift and what that means. So we have active resource recovery centres and we are implementing a hard rubbish collection and we look forward to assessing what that means for our community as we progress this significant culture change in regards to waste management. So credit to Gary and the team, and obviously extend that to exec, and obviously Councillor Summer for pursuing this. And hey, things happen when you don't expect it. So well done to all involved, and we look forward to this change. But just, yeah, highlighting the fact that it's not for a little while, so it'll no doubt come around quickly. And yeah, July 1 next year, presuming all things go well with the procurement, that we'll be able to roll this out, and we'll see what the future looks like in regards to waste management, which is an evolving space. So if there's nothing else, you didn't speak against it, did you? No. Yeah, 2, and neither did Councillor Schubert. So we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried on opposed. All right, those in favour? Go back, we'll go back. All those in favour?
Did you speak against it? Do I get the right of
Two.
reply? Did
Vote two.
to criticise it and voted against it, so.
Yeah, so all those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Councillors, we go to page 72 of the agenda, item 12.2, mobility and road safety strategy. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Councillor Spinks.
Thank you. I'll move that the council, 1, note the summary of public consultation and finalisation of the mobility and road safety strategy and action plan 2025-2029. 2, adopt the final mobility and road safety strategy and action plan 2025-2029 as attached.
Councillor Spinks, can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion, Ms. Sally.
Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, this is a very exciting strategy. We have, basically it's in response to the fact that our roads are getting much more dangerous, and that we've been seeing a lot more incidents, and road safety has been a real issue in our community. So this strategy proposes the very noble and good task of reducing our road fatalities and serious injuries by half by 2030, but ultimately to 0. Which I know in the consultation had some feedback come through to say was unrealistic, but anything less than that aim is unacceptable. So it's a big task to try to undertake for this strategy, but very, very important. And it looks not only at, it tries to look at the issue from many different lenses. So it focuses on the key action themes of safe people, safe speeds, safe roads, and safe vehicles. So it is about not only the drivers themselves, but the cars that we drive, the roads that we are on, the intersections, the way that they interact with pedestrians and cyclists. It's tried to take a very holistic look at the way that our roads and our mobility occurs across Greater Shepparton, and tasks itself with the very many initiatives and projects to try to reduce fatalities and serious injuries, which is something we must do. We simply must do. So this is a very important document that looks at improving safety and mobility for every user of our transport needs. I am happily moving it, very happy to support it. I will always continue to say I wish it focused more on pedestrians and cyclists, but I think that would require a separate strategy. That isn't the primary focus of this strategy. And I'm noting that because I think we always have to keep doing work on it, but that doesn't detract from the strength of this strategy. So very happy to support it today.
Councillor Spinks. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Sarley. Yeah, look, it is a really good strategy. I certainly take what Councillor Spinks says, that it could have been extended a little bit further. I mean, road safety is actually everyone's responsibility. Yes, we can break up the responsibility of, which piece of road surface, infrastructure belongs to which community responsibility, whether it's state government, federal government, or local government as well. That's part of it, in knowing and understanding that. I do feel that one thing that's probably not highlighted there, which is anecdotal, which is that I feel that post-COVID, drivers are probably less conscious of other people out on the roads and caring for one another. I anecdotally sort of see that more and more, unfortunately. And ultimately, it is the driver behaviour that determines safety in virtually every case of road accidents that are out there. It would have been good to maybe highlight a little bit more about the e-scooters and a number of other things down the track, because this strategy goes through to 2029. So you looked at Melbourne City, for instance, who had so many e-scooter hire groups out there, and they've disbanded them and didn't renew their contract, simply to make it a more safer city. So that forms part of a strategy as well. I mean, this strategy, the key themes were, for keeping people safe, keeping speeds at a safe level, roads that are safer, and vehicles that are safer as well. And really, ultimately, what it comes down to is that we need a safer community.
Thank you, councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against the motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion? Go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillors, page 79, item 13.1, Power Core Agreement, GB Link. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor Sally. I move that council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to execute the Power Core negotiated connection contract for GB Link for a total value of $1,626,475.40, including GST.
Councillor Schubert, can I have a councillor second that motion, please? Councillor Brophy.
I second that motion, Ms. Harley.
Thank you. Councillor Schubert, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, just a bit of an update on what their description of works are. Convert existing preliminary design drawings to detailed design drawings. Supply and install new kiosk, substation, high voltage and low voltage cables and service pits as specified in the construction design. Supply and install conduits in custom provided trenches that meet the VEDN standards. Test and commission new assets. Look, it's quite a deal of money, but when you think about what they're doing, you can understand why it's costing $1.6 million. So happy to endorse the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Schubert. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. This agreement falls within the economic parameters of the GB Link infrastructural costs. With utilities, services to the site, there is always going to be some unknown costings when you go into something like that. They are estimated based on experience and what has been designed, but there are always room for contingencies or a range bandwidth that could vary. Another step in this progress of this particular prized piece of industrial development, and look, before you know it, we will have a Congo line of potential investors wanting to a parcel of land.
Councillor Brophy. Any councillors like to speak against this motion? Any councillors like to speak for the motion?
Yep, just super briefly, I just want to be very, very clear, because I did wonder when we saw it. This is not at all a contingency. This is a planned for and budgeted for cost, and fits well within the scope that we had planned for and budgeted for within the GB Link project. So thank you.
Thanks, councillor Spinks.
Thanks for clarifying that, councillor Spinks. Very important point. Any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Motion carried, unopposed. Councillor, page 80, item 14.1, councillor activities May 2025. There is a recommendation. Can I have a councillor put that forward as a motion, please? Spinks.
I'll move that the council receive and note the summary of the councillors' community interactions and informal meeting of councillors.
Thank you. Can I have a councillor second that motion? Councillor Brophy.
Sarley, I'll second it.
Thank you. Councillor Spinks, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brophy, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor Sarley. Just to highlight a couple of things. Congratulations to the official opening of Shepparton Food Share over in Rupner. It's a fantastic facility, and it's really looking after our own community. Locals looking after locals. The Careers Day Out, sensational down at the Shepparton Showgrounds there. It's been running for a number of years now, and it's just getting bigger and better. The Shepparton Malay Association, their multicultural talent show, an incredible night that they had at East Bank. Of course, Greater Shepparton SBC Business Excellence Awards, the launch there, so that's underway. I attended the Municipal Association of Victoria State Council meeting. Of course, the hot topic there was the morning after the passing of the Emergency Services and Volunteer Fund. So most councils were certainly against that particular thing. So that was a highlight in talking about that. And the last one I just want to mention is the relaunching of Boost Juice out there. that Mayor Saleh, I think maybe a little bit more practice in making your own boost juice wouldn't go astray if you have a look at the video, if anybody wants to see that.
Very good. I thought I did a good job, but any councillors like to speak against the motion? No, any councillors like to speak for the motion? Ready to vote, all those in favour? Motion carried and opposed. Councillors, last page, item 15, notice of motion amendment or rescission nor received. Item 16, urgent business not included on the agenda. Is there any urgent business that's arisen since the finalisation of the agenda? No. And item 17, close of meeting, which I will do now at 12:55 PM. So, well done, guys. Good work.
You.
Thank